to episode 57 of the YarnderWoman podcast. This is a knitting podcast, and we're also going to talk about living well for yourself, for others, and for the planet. So that's a new little tagline I'm trying there, so we will chat more about that later. Today is Tuesday the 24th of February 2017, and as always I'm coming to you from Perth in Western Australia. It is so lovely to spend some time with you today. I have been busily knitting away. As I mentioned in the previous episode, I've had a few days of annual leave peppered throughout January, and that has definitely helped me with especially one of my giant projects, so I will show you more of that in works in progress. I hope you've got a cup of tea or coffee or water, whatever you want, ready to go, or you may be watching while you're stuck in traffic, as I know poor Twee does of Twisted Stitches podcast, so good luck with the traffic, Twee. I've got my coffee today. This is in my mug from Kobe, which was the big city near where I used to live in Japan. And I'm so excited because we're going there later in the year. It's not till September, October, but yeah, now that it's in this year, the excitement is building, so using my Japanese mugs is definitely a little bit special. So, without further ado, let's move on and broach the subject. So these gorgeous little cuties come from the company Dick and Dora, usually made in Tasmania, and they are made with sustainably harvested local timbers from Tasmania. And this brooch was sent to me by the gorgeous Grace of the Babbles Travelling Yarns podcast. So hopefully you have caught up with her latest episode. There's a great one of Grace down in Tasmania going through Mona, the Museum of New Art, which is quite an interesting place. But while Grace was in Tasmania, she spotted this brooch and sent it to me, which is just gorgeous. So thank you again, Grace. And I just love how there's the three of them together and just hanging out. It's great. And of course, awesome that it's locally made by crafters down in Tasmania. I believe it's been laser cut out of the sustainable wood. So I will put a link to their website in the show notes, and you may be able to get your own little trio of birds. And the little brooch set actually came in a sort of small calico bag, and the awesome thing about that is it was, I guess, probably double the size, like folded over. So it's a really good size I can use when I go to the supermarket, because I can use it instead of the plastic bags for loose produce, or at the bulk food store for buying, flour or grains and things like that. So again, hugely sustainable and reusable, so that's even more awesome. Okay, this is my giant work in progress, which is my Find Your Fade shawl. I don't know if you've started seeing some finished projects on Instagram or Ravelry, but it's huge. Megan, Just Run Knit of Stockinette Zombies, posted this awesome photo, and it was the shawl all blocked out, and it's a three-sided shawl, one of each of her children on each end, and none of them were as tall as any of the edges of the shawl. So, and her children aren't babies, so it's really quite a large one. So I will show you where I'm up to. It just makes my heart sing, those colours, so pretty. I don't recall where I was up to last time. I think perhaps I had just begun doing this section here. This here I've just got a little drop stitch, that's just to pick it up. And my cute little teapot marker, which is from Familiar Notions on Etsy. That's just what I've been using each day just to show my progress. So that's how much I got done yesterday, which doesn't look a lot, but they're quite wide. And that's the lace part, so that's obviously a little bit, takes a little bit longer than doing plain stockinette. But yes, so I think I've done maybe this much since I last saw you. So to refresh your memory, or if you haven't seen the previous episode, I started with the Unique Sheep in the colourway Doctors Without Borders. Then I faded into Ultron by No Makers. And isn't this awesome, the way that colours pooled? So Ultron, let me pull out the rest of the cake. It's gone a little bit squishy now. So it's got this gorgeous sort of grey and red and, various shades of the red where it's blended in. And just the way that it pulled is quite cool. It got all the grey together and then these reddy edges in that section, and then as the patterning changed, it almost striped up here, then there's bits where it's more variegated. So much fun, but I just love that sort of swirling, or not, it's not swirling, but you know what I mean, blending and then into the pure grey of the V. I just think it's so fun. So there was that one. And then my next colour here, that is Sock Bunny Studios in the colourway Running with Scissors. And then the widest part of the shawl, where you get the most of one colour. This is Knit Picks in the Berry Smoothie colourway, I think it is. Bear with me one moment, I'm just looking for the tag. There is so much in this little bag. Well, I say little bag, this is the bag it's in. This was made for me by the gorgeous Julia, 9crafty11. And I've got all my yarns in here, actually, and a bonus yarn. This one I had wound up. This is Invictus Yarns, I believe, yes. And it's 80/20 Superwash BFL nylon. And as well as finding a different colour that I think worked better, this has got a really nice tight twist, and while of course you can use that for a shawl, I thought this would actually be really good for socks, so I'm glad that worked out. Now back to what I was actually looking for. The Knit Picks Hawthorn Fingering Berry Smoothie Sparkle. Now, as I said, this is the section where it's the widest of the shawl, so it's actually got the most of that yarn. And at first I was a bit disappointed that had ended up being this more subtle colour, because it does have the the speckles of red and black on this purpley grey colour. But there's not as much happening on the other yarns. But then I thought that's actually quite good, because this middle part really is my transition between lots of reds going into lots of purples. So it's almost like this is the twilight zone in between, where it sort of quiets down for the colours just ramp up again. So I actually really like that now. And I really like the colour anyway, but I really like the effect. Next up, we have Jinx yarn in the Little Sister colourway, and that's where it's still got lots of red speckles, but it's definitely going more into the purple. And then my current colour, this purple and black, is another No Makers. So I've got two No Makers in here. This is the Decepticons colourway, Transformers reference. So you can definitely see where it comes in. Definitely darker purple, but it still transitions really nicely because this has got that darker plummy purple as well. And then my next colour is going to be even more black with just a little bit of purple. So I think that is going to look awesome. And that one is Marigold Gem. So yes, if you haven't already fallen down the rabbit hole of this shawl, I cannot recommend it enough. It is so much fun. Going through, by the end of it, 7 colours is just so fun. And it's definitely the biggest shawl I have. Well, I don't even have it yet, it's not finished, but yes. But I'm really tempted to knit another one in other colours, but probably not straight away. As I said at the beginning, because I've had so much time off lately, I've just been putting a lot of annual leave days in. That's actually what's helped me progress, because as I said, it is quite big and I'm not that fast a knitter. So I think were I knitting this on my normal work schedule, I don't think I'd be anywhere near as finished. But yes, loving, loving, loving. As well as that bag for my yarns, this is the bag I'm keeping the actual shawl in now, because at first I was just popping it on top. Oh, I've got yarn flying everywhere. Popping it on top, but it's so big now, it's progressed to its own bag. So this is from Bird Leg Bags. I've used this one before because it's just awesome. All the cool gothic Halloween loveliness. And I've also got this Notions pouch. This is from Girl So Sheepy. And the lovely Tammy actually sent me this as a gift a while ago. I just think it's so cute. Those little plump silhouettes and the doggies. So yes, links to all of those shops in the show notes. And so as well as knitting the giantness that is Find Your Fade, I did cast on a pair of socks. These are going to be for the 3 Australia cows that I'm aware are going on. So the first one that prompted this was Wonders of the World. I mentioned that last time. That was the brainchild of Fatima from Knit Knack and Natters podcast. And the lovely Grace, who sent me the brooch, is hosting the Australia and New Zealand part of it. So all links in the show notes. And this pattern is by Claire Devine, who is based in Melbourne, Australia, and it is called Grey Skies, and it's a fabulous stitch pattern. Sorry if I cannot poke myself with all these needles. You can see there's a wonderful stitch pattern made with twisted stitches, and it looks great either just together or when it's stretched out on the foot. So it's actually a longer leg, but I've made this an ankle sock. It might be for me, but it probably will be for YarnderWoman, because I'm thinking YarnderWoman needs some red socks. She doesn't have any. And this yarn is just so soft and gorgeous. This is skein, also Australian, so I'm keeping totally Australian for the cow. This is in the poppy colourway in her top drawer sock base, which if you've ever touched or heard about is just like a cloud. It's 75-25 merino nylon, but I think there is some magic in there because it's just so soft. So this is in a ball, which I don't usually do. I may have mentioned this incident. It was a couple of years ago it happened. I was skeining up a whole lot of yarn at the time on my ball winder and Swift, and this particular skein got all twisted. I don't think it had come that way. It just, one of those things. These things happen. And so I was there for quite a while trying to, go in and out. Just had enough. Now, the teen, who is now 16, but she probably, it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. She was 12 or 13, much younger. She had a friend over, and I said to them, I will pay you both $5 to just untangle this and get it sorted for me because I've had enough. Unbeknownst to me, they came back and said, yeah, we had to keep cutting it, so we've tied it together for you. So I have a photo here. Of all the knots. So, oh, you can laugh now, can't you? Oh, God. So, yeah, I think I lost about 20 grams of the 100 gram skein because it had been knotted up. And look, bless them, they didn't know. They were just trying to help. They thought, they were being very innovative and finding ways to get through the problem. Just unfortunate that I had not articulated, don't cut the yarn, but let's move on now, we're okay. So I unwound all that yarn when I wanted to start because it had stayed rolled up, because just when it happened I was just like, just put that away. So I've unravelled it. Those little bits will now be used instead of ribbon on presents or, tying things up. It's fine. The rest of the ball is fine. We're moving on. Let's go. So this pattern is, as I mentioned, usually a longer leg, but I did a shorter length because I think at the moment being summer, I started it as a longer leg and then thought, no, I think ankle length are good. I did a Fish Lips Kiss heel rather than the heel in the pattern because that's just my go-to. I love how the colours have come out, the semi-solid tonal colourway. Beautiful. And of course on the bottom there's no pattern on the foot, so that's going lovely. I'm using 2.25 millimetre. Now, I did cast these on originally with a 2 millimetre because I thought I will trial using a smaller needle and the bigger stitch count because I thought it would be good to get a more dense fabric. I got through all the ribbing. I think I did about 25 rows of ribbing. As I was going, I was like, yeah, I'd like a lot of ribbing, let's do this. Yeah, then I put that on I couldn't even get it over my heel. So despite the fact I'd done a bigger stitch count, it was just too small. So ripped it all out, started again on my normal needle size because I thought I could stay with the smaller needles and just cast on even more, but I'd already cast on the 72 stitches and I thought, no. So I just went back to my normal stitch count, normal needle size, and I actually left it on the 72 stitch count because I thought A, the YarnderWoman has a slightly bigger foot than me, and B, I also want to try, if I do keep them, if having all this ribbing sucks them in and it negates not having as much negative ease, because it's sort of by virtue of the ribbing come in a little bit more anyway. So experiment. I may still try them on, and well, I will try them on because I'll be seeing how they're fitting, because I'll judge the length of my foot, because it's, as I said, pretty much the same for YarnderWoman, just a little bit bigger. So I'll try them on and see how I go, and then it'll also be interesting to see what YarnderWoman thinks. So they're going well. They're living in my bag from Shara Made that she so generously gave me. Oh, look, I'm matching. Aww. So I mentioned these are going to be for 3 cows. So the Wonders of the World. There is going to be the Aussie cow that is being hosted by Shara and Hannah, Nicola and Tam. So all links to the 4 podcasts in the show notes. That one starts in a couple of days on the 26th of January. And then I've also found that the Wool Gathering Australia are hosting a Kanga Kiwi cow. So kangaroo and Kiwi, Australia and New Zealand. So I think I can enter these in all 3, because I think Wonders of the World had to be new projects, which this was. The Aussie cow, you can definitely have whips as long as they're less than 50%, which this is. I'm not sure about the Kanga Kiwi cow for whips actually, so we'll see. And this is the Notions pouch I'm using. It's beautiful Musha inspired fabric, and that is from the lovely Nina of Give Me a Crown podcast and Etsy shop. So I'm keeping it all Australian for my Australian cows. I'm really hoping to join the Boxer Socks cow by the lovely Kristen of Yarngasm podcast, but that one you have to have 12 socks in your box for yourself, 12 pairs, not 12 socks, that are for yourself. And I just don't know that I'm going to have time, to be honest, because I do have a few sock projects that I definitely want to make for some other people. But we'll see. I'll just knit socks and we'll see what happens. But speaking of socks, I have, excuse me as I lean, in my Christmas bag, because these are Christmas project, my Elfenstein socks. So these were from the swap project or swap event that the gorgeous Vicky de Vixter of the Sweet Leaps podcast organised. So my swap partner was Jana Nav, and we sent each other advent calendars of yarn. I think I have shown you these before. So for example, like this. And the idea is that you make knee-high socks like an elf would wear, but with all these different yarns. So they're like Frankenstein socks, therefore Elfenstein. So this is where I'm up to on my first one. I've just done the heel. Sorry. I did my fish lips kiss heel. And these are so fun. Look at those, just crazy. Now you can see here, these are the calf, well, decreases really, because I started at the top. Now, the reason these have stalled a bit is because I was following a pattern, which was great. It's not the pattern's fault. I didn't check the gauge. I just assumed that my calf was the same size. And the problem is these, you can probably see because I've put the heel in, these are not necessarily knee-high from there. Well, it might be on some people. That's being very presumptuous, isn't it? On me, this is not knee-high. Unfortunately, when I got down to about here and I tried them on, this only goes up about halfway up my calf. Doesn't even go anywhere near my knee. And that's because it's too small. So my thoughts were, well, I could rip back the whole thing. It would literally have to be that to the, actually no, I don't think I could even keep the ribbing. It would need to be smaller, bigger. So would have had to rip out and start the whole project again. I just couldn't face it. I really like how they look. I know not having them knee high will mean I'm not eligible for prizes, but that's okay. You know, the prizes are lovely, but you know, I was doing it to join in and to knit yarn from my friend with a knit along that my friend had organised. So I'm leaving them as they are. They'll just be calf socks with a funny bulge, and that will be fine. They'll be lovely and warm come winter, and I'll just keep going. So that's why they have stalled a little bit, but I'm definitely going to finish them because I've got so many beautiful yarns that Jana sent me, and I can't wait. I don't think they're going to be matchy-matchy at all. I did sort of use approximately half of all of these, but I'm just going to play it by ear and see what comes out and what happens where. So those are fun. So I will show you those again when there's a bit more progress. And I think I'll probably keep them in the Christmas bag, at least for now, because they are Christmassy socks. This is from Suburban Stitcher, and I just love it. It's like a blackboard or a chalkboard with the colour of the red holly in them as well. So these are technically FOs and they're right, but they're part of a little project, so that's why I'm considering them whips. So I've been joining in the 5 Shawls in 5 Days challenge by the lovely Frenchie, who goes under Aroha Knits, and every day she sends you an email with the different shawl constructions, and you make a little mini shawl. So it's a way of her sharing her knowledge and empowering people to, you know, get more of an understanding about how designs and constructions occur. So it's been very good fun, and it's just teeny little things. At first I was thinking, well, what am I going to do with them? Is it, you know, what's the, you know, when I've got the product, what am I going to do? And I went, rat shawls, because of course, if you're not aware, we have 3 pet rats in our house. They're officially the teens, my daughter, stepdaughter technically, but she's my daughter. But I like knitting for them and I like playing with them. So actually I'll put some more rat videos at the very end, the very end, because I know not everyone likes them, but I think we'll keep that in. And they've got their own hashtag now on Instagram, so it's YarnderRats, if you want to look at anything. Back to the knitting. This was the first one, which was a triangular shawl. So that's really good fun. So the yarn I've used for this, you may recognise from my Find Your Fade, is the Berry Sparkle yarn, because it was all ready to go. Excuse me, leaning in. And because, as I mentioned in the previous little bit, that used the most yarn. So there's not a lot left. Obviously I've used some more now, but I thought this was a good way to utilise what was already wound up and ready to go. And this is also quite a, it's 80-20 as I said, but it's quite rustic, not at all. It's just, it's a little bit more toothy, so I thought that will be good to give to the rats because it'll be a bit more longer lasting for them. Next one was a semicircle. Now, the astute amongst you, although maybe not because it's a little bit hard to see with the sparkles. Anyway, I messed up where my yarn over increases were, but I don't think the rats will mind, so it's okay. I still understood the principle, and actually it was a very good learning experience because I realised about halfway through where I was supposed to do my yarn over as opposed to where my marker was. So it was definitely a good learning experience. Obviously if this was an actual project I would rip it out, but for an experiment and a rat shawl, I'm going to leave it in. And day 3 was a semicircle with the increases going along the bottom. So that's been great fun. So I think, because the emails come out for America time, I think to try and make it appeal to as a wider audience as possible. Because Frenchie is actually based in Japan. I believe she has 4 nationalities, but she's has very strong Maori heritage from New Zealand. So a lot of her patterns actually are Aroha Knits. That's a Maori word. A lot of her patterns have Maori names, but she's also Australian, and she has American citizenship. And will I say Japanese, Frenchie? I'm terribly sorry, I've gone blank on that one, but I'm going to guess that because you're living in Japan. Very excitingly, because I'm going to Japan later in the year. I'm so hopeful that I can meet up with Frenchie, but we'll see how we go. I'm sure she's very busy. But anyway, so I will show you the next 2 in the next episode because that's been really great fun. So you may have seen on Ravelry or Instagram that we are having our now annual Pop Culture Knit Along. Yay! A lot of people have said they've been hanging out and waiting for this, so I'm very glad to hear that because I definitely have a lot of fun with it. So it is going to be running from the 1st of February to the 31st of March 2017. So we've got 2 months, and I originally said it was going to be knitting, crochet, spinning, weaving, cross stitch. We've now added sewing because why not? So as long as you are using either a pattern or yarn fibre fabric that is somehow pop culture related. So if you can explain it, you're in. I myself am planning to knit some socks that are like the ones that the character 11 in Stranger Things wears. If you haven't seen the show, here is a photo of her here. So you may have noticed she and I have similar haircuts, so I thought that would be an awesome costume for a future comic convention or something like that. So I have the yarn already in my stash, which is awesome. I'm going to be using Knit Picks Strolls. I've got the white, the green and the yellow. So I'll be casting those on as part of the Pop Culture Cow. So that's an example. That's not a pattern as such. You know, I'm just going to be using my basic sock pattern that I use, but it is exactly copying the costume item. So that's another idea you can have if you can make that work as well. We have some awesome prizes all ready to go. We have something from Ophelia Violetta on Instagram. She has some Harry Potter items for us, so as soon as they are ready, she's going to send us a photo. We also will have a pop culture bag from Knit So Pop, who is an Australian bag maker. So again, we're going to have some great photos of those. We also have the Brick Road pattern, which is a Wizard of Oz reference, which is awesome because I love Wizard of Oz, from Sweater Co, who is the same designer of the Fine and Dandy socks that you might have seen around, so you know that they're going to be awesome. And we have a couple more ideas in the works for prizes, so there's going to be some awesome things coming up. Think about what you're going to cast on. The chatter thread is already open, so you can go in there. I'll open the FO thread from the 1st of February. You can have works in progress, I would say, yeah, as long as they're, you know, no more than 50% or so finished, that would be cool. And you have to obviously finish them within the cow time frame. So go and have a chat, think about what you're going to make, and it's going to be awesome. I'm doing a lot of talking with my hands at the moment, aren't I? But I'm just so excited. We also have our charity knit along going. That's going to be for the whole year. And I was really excited. I was looking up some charities closer to home that I could donate to. And I know the charity KOGO, which is Knit One Give One, KOGO, is something that a couple of our members already knit for. And I realised that, I found that there's a branch of that charity in Australia, and that Bendigo is a collection point. So Bendigo is where the Australian Sheep and Wool Show is held every year, which is sort of Australia's version of Rhinebeck, but much smaller. And I'm planning to go to Bendigo again this year with YarnderWoman. So I thought I might aim for that, because that would be a really good point to go to and then just take them all. So I'll look more into that, because I'm not sure where exactly in Bendigo the collection point is, but if that's the case, it might be fun to have a branch off of the charity cow for anyone who is going to Bendigo, that we aim to knit as much as possible, and then we all bring it to Bendigo and we can donate it there. So more on that later as I find out more details. And some other cows that I am going to be entering that I'm not running myself. I mentioned all the Australia, New Zealand ones earlier. Boston Jen of the Downseller Studio is running one all year that's called Whipping 2017 in the Butt. So whipping being a joke on works in progress whips. And the premise behind that one is at the beginning of each month, you declare a whip that you're going to work on. And if you finish it by the end of the month, you can update your post and then be eligible for a prize. So again, I think this is going to be really good motivation for me, more so than prize winning. Prizes are awesome, don't get me wrong. But I think for February, I'm going to nominate my banana leaf shawl that I was knitting towards the end of last year, using gorgeous yarn from Atelier Meg. Meg Gadsby, who is an Australian dyer, and that way, as well as getting it finished and having it eligible for that prize, or that cow, I can also enter it in the Aussie cow, because that's using an Australian designer. So, see, there's method in my madness, I get there in the end. Another cow I am really keen on finding more about, but I haven't really looked into it yet, is I'm just looking at my notes, it's Make Whips, Not Waste, Make Along. That is being run by the Brownberry Chronicles podcast, and Boston Jen mentioned it, so that's why I haven't found out more details yet. But the tagline for it is, let's use, reuse, recycle and repurpose more in 2017, and let's waste, overconsume, collect and stash less. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I'm really wanting to have a lot more of a focus in my life or in the podcast about living well and better for the environment. So I think this is going to be something really interesting. So I will find out more details. You can obviously go and have a look yourself as well. I'll link everything. And on a similar note, I found a video, or not found, it came out, a video from lovely Andre Sue Knits, and it's one about upcycling t-shirts into yarn. So I'll link to that one because that's really interesting. She shows you how to cut up both woven fabric, knit fabric, and how to make that into yarn to use for things like a crocheted bowl or a rug, and it's really interesting. And I think that's really important thing to be doing, is looking at how we can reuse things, definitely not just throwing them away to landfill. So something I'm very happy that I was able to do is I have gone through all my stash. I've pulled out things that I wanted to rehome. So some things are being donated, some things have been sold. There's still a few things to go, so have a look at my destash page if you're interested. I'm totally joking, you don't have to do that, but if you are interested, do have a look. But it was so cathartic and satisfying to actually have the stash in order. So for the most part, things were where they should be, but not always. You know, as things came in, I was often just shoving them in somewhere. So now I've got everything organised by dyer in most cases, so everything's together as opposed to perhaps by weight of yarn or anything like that. Things where I've only got one skein from someone, obviously I've got a collection of single skeins, but otherwise they're by dyer. And I'm looking over it now and it just makes my heart really happy and light, I think. Marsha of Fairy Little Podcast was talking about in her recent episode how she's been doing a lot of decluttering, getting rid of a lot of clothes to the point where she actually sold a dressing table because she just didn't need that much storage space because she decluttered so much. And she talked about how having less physically makes you light inside, and it's so true. And you know, it's just really, really happiness making. You know, I have so much yarn, it's not even funny, and it's just so nice to know what it is and to know where it is. So that has definitely been a high point of my year so far. And something else I've been doing this year, I forgot to mention last time, but you may have seen on Instagram, I'm doing daily gratitude posts. So every day I'm doing a post under the hashtag YWGratitude 2017, what year are we in? And it's something because I've always felt very strongly that gratitude is important for everyone. It's important for us to realise the privileged position that so many of us are in, despite what our circumstances are, noting that bad things happen to everyone. It's terrible. You know, there's a lot of things, you know, that I would love to change if I could, or that had never happened, but I'm so grateful for all the wonder that I do have in my life and for all the benefits and the privileges. So it's just a way for me to really bring that home to myself, to really look each day. And sometimes I must say there's more than one thing I'd like to post about being grateful for. So I just think, how much better can you get for that? So have a look at that if you are interested. On a similar topic, Boston Jen, again of Down Cellar Studio, she is doing the Happiness Project. So that is in reference or inspired by the Gretchen Rubin book, The Happiness Project. So every month Gretchen looked at a different aspect of her life and a way of finding how you can bring more happiness and joy from it. And so sort of broadly speaking, with all those topics, and I've been peppering them throughout, I really do want to have and a special focus at this tail end of the podcast. So if people are only interested in the knitting, that is more than fine. But if you've been watching a while, you'll know that I do like to talk about things that I'm interested in, be that environmentalism, low tox living, slow living. These are all things that have been becoming either more to the fore with environmentalism and feminism, diversity, all that sort of thing, or things I've only really been made aware of or found out the term for, such as slow living, which I discovered on the podcast Slow Home, I think it was around April last year or so. So these things have been coming just more and more important, and not even just more important, just my absolute focus. And I'd really like to increase other people's awareness. And by saying that, I don't mean in any way that I'm going to be preachy or that I think people don't know anything. Hopefully, you know, if you've been watching, that that's not how I am, that I like to just show people and talk about things that I'm interested in, and just hope people will find that interesting as well. So the tagline that I want to have for the podcast, I'm still deciding, but something about, you know, living well for yourself, for others, and for the planet, because that's really the key. So looking at, you know, it is quite scary. 2016 was the hottest year on record. Before that, 2015 was. Before that, 2014 was. Every year, the planet is getting hotter. And it really does scare me to the core about what is happening to the planet. So I just, you know, I want to be more active. That's my goal this year. I want to be more active in my beliefs. And I'm hoping that by us having these discussions, that can help you. We can discuss it, you know. I hope I'm being clear. I don't feel I'm being very articulate. I really want to focus on not being preachy, but on raising awareness as much as I can. And similar to that, I want to really do something more specific as well. I'm even thinking about joining a political party or my local council or something like that, but I really have to work out what would be involved in that, because I don't want to overcommit. But things like grassroots level, I heard about a project called boomerang bags recently, and how that works is in communities, volunteers get together and sew using secondhand fabric, so it's upcycling, reusing, shopping bags, and then there's a collection point at the front of the supermarket, and it encourages people, instead of using the plastic bags that get thrown away, use these bags. And the boomerang, which is the Indigenous Australian hunting tool, where you throw it and it comes back. That way you use the bags, take them home, then you bring them back next time. And you just either put them back in the box for other people to use, or you just use them again. So people aren't keeping them, they're just reusing them. And it's that community focus and that really simple grassroots thing, because, you know, most of us go to the shops all the time. And if everyone's using plastic bags, single use all the time, that is just so much plastic that will never break down, So that's something I'm really excited about. I've only just heard about it yesterday, so I'm waiting to hear back from them, because I definitely want to organise that in my community. I don't have a sewing machine, I'll have to borrow YarnderWoman's. I don't know anyone who sews in my area, but I'm really, really, really looking forward to doing something on a local level that I feel could make a big difference. Something that's really inspiring to me is on the weekend I saw all the pussy hats out at the women's marches around the world. I think it's horribly sad that there was a need to have the marches, that women's rights are still not being respected. You know, I think it was Piddleloop on Instagram had a placard for her protest, and it said, "When will women have liberty?" And it was a sign from women's marches in 1917. So it's the same message 100 years on, which is very disappointing. And I hope that people will take that activism, and I think that's a really good thing that's happening, is that the situation in American politics and around the world with lots of things, Brexit, in Australia, you know, I think we're much luckier than a lot of countries, but you know, there's still things that, you know, many of us don't agree with in terms of what's happening in the political sphere. I think people are becoming more active and are becoming more aware of what they might be able to do. So that's really inspiring, and I loved seeing the sea of pink hats and all the pussy hats that people had been knitting. I pretended that I could see mine in the crowd, the one that I sent off. I hope it went to a good home. It looks like everyone was really, you know, embracing it, so that was awesome. So yes, I feel that I've said a lot, and I would love to continue this conversation in the Ravelry thread. I have a thread for every episode in the Ravelry group, YarnderWoman podcast. So do come and chat. Let me know if you're doing anything or what your thoughts are on ways you might feel you can make a difference. I think our charity knitting thread is a great one. That's on the ground, actual involvement, you know? That's something else I'd like to get involved in because I want to revamp the craft group that I started at my workplace because we were knitting things for a women and children's domestic violence shelter. And I was thinking that's an issue that's quite close to my heart. Were it not for friends and family of mum, we would have ended up in a domestic violence shelter when I was a child. I don't want to go too much into that because it's not just my business, but something I'd really like to get involved in is how can we stop having a need for domestic violence shelters? You know what I mean? I think it's really important, and I'm loving knitting things to help the people who find themselves in need. But on a broader scale, that's why I'm looking at things like politics and what can we do to sort of stop that cycle. Same with environmentalism. I think we all need to do what we can, and by everyone making a small step, that will make a bigger change. But it needs to come from government as well, because there needs to be those broader policies to support what needs to happen. So I'm really excited about this journey that I'm hoping to make. Please do come and chat because I'd love to hear more about what you think as well. And another thing I've been learning more about is movement, how much we need to move. You know, we always knew it, the saying is sitting is the new smoking. And I mentioned last time I was reading the book Moving Your DNA by Katie Bowman. I finished that. It was fabulous. And I've also just finished her second book, which is Movement Matters, which looks even further into movement, but also how movement and the world and other people tie together. So she was talking about, and something that really resonated with me, is modern conveniences mean that you don't move as much, but it means that you are putting burden on someone else, often people who perhaps aren't in proper working conditions or aren't being paid a fair wage, and the environment. So in terms of the fuel that's used to process, to ship food, to the plastic that's involved, as well as, the movement that we in modern society don't do anymore because we're not actually having to gather our food. So, and of course I mean this with all respect to anyone who has movement issues. She does look into that as well. I think it's a book everyone has to read, so I'll definitely link it in the show notes. Really interesting. She's very funny. It's very easy to understand. It's not too high level, despite the fact she's talking about higher level things. So do check it out. It's also very funny because at the end of both of the audiobooks, she's got little outtakes, so where she'll start reading something and then her voice will go funny or whatever. So that's quite amusing as well. So that's been more of a focus because I've mentioned before that exercise is just not something I am drawn to, but I definitely have been trying for a while, but these books have helped me even more. So for example, the other morning I was walking to my bus stop to get the bus to work, and as I approached it, I saw the bus drive past because it, come 1 minute earlier. So I knew I had a 15-minute wait. So I actually walked to a few bus stops along. So rather than stand or sit for that 15-minute period, I used the time to get some more exercise or more movement. She focuses very much on exercise is movement, but not all movement is exercise. So that was really good as well. Fortunately, it was not too hot for the weather, so I didn't quite die. Yes, highly, highly, highly recommend that book. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've got something to show you now that are some Valentine's cards designed by Damien, who is DKS Art and Design, but I will show you at the end after I finish chatting with you now, so if you're not interested, you don't have to watch. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate the time that you take because I know we've all got a lot of things on in our lives. Actually, just flipping back to the book I mentioned, Movement Matters, Katie Bowman, the author, talks about how we need to stack more of what we're doing. So that doesn't mean multitask. It means finding out what we have to do, what we want to do in our day, and how can we do more than one thing at a time without it being multitasking where we're not focusing. So the example she gives is that she takes her children out foraging. They live in an area where there's some food that you can collect. So that is covering her movement, her children's movement, spending time together as a family, preparing or gathering food. So rather than, you know, her going to the supermarket on her own, that sort of thing. And then they also, that's part of the children learning that they need to contribute and that they're helping the family as a load. So it's doing all those things together. So again, another awesome reason to read that book. So back to what I was saying, I realised that everyone has a lot to do, and so I really appreciate you taking some time to spend with me. I have really enjoyed speaking with you. As I said, do come and chat about the, you know, environmentalism or activism or just the knitting or just whatever you'd like. I would love to hear from you. You can also find show notes at www.yarnderwoman.blogspot.com.au, and there'll be links to everything. If you ever have any questions about anything, also drop me a line on Ravelry or Instagram. I'm YarnderWoman on both places. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're not interested in seeing the Valentine's Day cards from DKS Art and Design, I will say goodbye to you now. And happy crafting. I'll see you next time. If you are interested, here are the beautiful artworks that Damien has been designing. So this is part of his monster card range. So you can get all of these at Etsy. So I'll put all the links in the show notes. His shop is DKS Art Design. And if you are in the Perth area, you can also go and have a look at them in the reel at the Cats and Curiosities shop at the Wanneroo Markets. So do drop me a line if you've got any questions. Otherwise, go straight to the Etsy link. There is plenty of time for them to be shipped overseas from Perth here in time for Valentine's Day, so never fear, they will get to you in time. And let me know if you have any questions or any comments. So now I will sign off altogether from everyone. Thank you so much again for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day and happy crafting. Bye-bye.
Leader. That's Mia. Come on, little Mia. Oh, you're feeding me, Emma. They're licking it off me. Oh, I can feel their tongues. Isn't it adorable, Leah? Yeah, it is. Oh, they licked this finger clean.